This screencast introduces you to tissues and then discusses epithelial tissues specifically. These topics may be found in Chapter 3 of your textbook. This screencast was designed to help you achieve the following objectives. Describe the method for studying tissues suggested by the instructor. List the 4 primary tissues of the human body. Describe the distinguishing characteristics of epithelial tissue. Describe the form, function, and location of 6 types of epithelial tissue. Compare exocrine and endocrine glands and provide one example of each. Now that you have a good understanding of the form and function of cells, we will now turn to the next level of organization of the human body, the tissues. A tissue is a group of cells which are similar in structure that perform a common or related function. What distinguishes one tissue from another are the cells that form the tissue and the type and the amount of extracellular material lying outside of the cells. There are 4 primary tissues. They are epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissues. Between the lab and lecture components of the course, you will be responsible for learning the structure, function, and location of each specific tissue. Rather than blindly memorizing facts, try to relate a tissue's structure to its function to its location, and then finally its location back to its structure. All of these are interrelated. This is a much better approach to memorizing because it helps you to truly learn and understand the tissues rather than simply memorize information about them. You'll enjoy learning as opposed to memorizing. You'll also retain more information when you learn, and you'll be able to perform better on evaluations such as quizzes and exams. For example, let's look at stratified squamous epithelium, which is found in the outer layer of skin called the epidermis. Just by knowing the location of stratified squamous epithelia, what do you think its function is? If you said protection, you are correct. When you view this tissue under the microscope or from a picture in your book, think about how its structure reflects its role in protecting deeper tissues. First, let's discuss epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is found in various locations in the body. Epithelial tissues cover the body, and they also cover organs, such as the organs of the thoracic and abdominal cavities. Epithelial tissues also line the thoracic and abdominal cavities, as well as cavities that open to the outside world, like the gastrointestinal tract and the respiratory tract and the urinary tract. And epithelial tissues also form glands. Now let's relate their locations to their functions. If epithelial tissue covers organs and the body, it makes sense that they would function in protection. If epithelial tissue lines the body cavities, it would make sense that they participate in absorption and secretion in the digestive tract or the respiratory tract or the urinary tract. And also in some of those locations, they also participate in filtration. Let's look at the structure of epithelial tissue. In epithelial tissue, the cells fit very closely together. There's not a lot of room for extracellular material. Epithelial tissue always has a free surface, and we call that surface an apical. surface. Anything that lines or covers, by definition, has to have a free surface. The basal surface is the portion of the tissue that's attached to deeper tissues. The basal surface produces extracellular substances, or rather produces substances that are secreted into the extracellular matrix, and it helps adhere the epithelial tissue to deeper tissues, and this is called a basement membrane. Epithelial tissues do not have a blood supply of their own. They are avascular. They depend on oxygen and nutrients diffusing across their basal surface. However, if epithelial tissue is well nourished, it regenerates quite well. Think of how many times you've burnt the inside of your mouth or suffered a superficial wound to your skin. Within a few days, the wounds had healed quite nicely. Epithelial tissue is classified according to two criteria. One is the number of cell layers. A single layer of epithelial cells is referred to as a simple epithelia. If the tissue contains more than one layer of cells, it is referred to as stratified. Epithelial tissue is also classified by the shape of its cells. Squamous epithelial cells contain flat cells. Squamous means fish scale, and fish scales are flat, thus the name squamous. Cuboidal cells are cubed shaped, and columnar cells are column shaped. Now that you understand the two criteria by which epithelial tissue is classified, let's look at some specific types of epithelial tissue. Simple squamous epithelial tissue consists of a single layer of flat cells. You find this type of tissue in areas where diffusion is important. Since it's a single layer of very flat cells, there is a very thin tissue layer across which substances have to diffuse. You find simple squamous epithelium, for example, lining the alveoli or air sacs of the lungs, in the capillaries of the body. You also find simple squamous epithelial tissue lining the body cavities as serosal membranes. Stratified squamous epithelium consists of multiple layers of cells. The cells on the free edge or the apical surface are flat, and the deeper cells tend to be more cube shaped. You find this type of tissue where a lot of friction occurs, and its function is protection. For example, you find stratified squamous epithelium in the skin, the epidermis, the mouth and esophagus, as well as the vagina. Simple cuboidal epithelium consists of a single layer of cube-like cells. This type of tissue is commonly found in glands such as the salivary glands and the glands of the pancreas. Simple cuboidal epithelium also forms the walls of kidney tubules. Stratified cuboidal epithelium consists of 2 to 3 layers of cube-like cells. They line the larger ducts of mammillary glands, salivary glands, and also certain glands of the pancreas. I also want to correct something in your book. In your book, stratified cuboidal epithelium is considered the same as transitional epithelium. I have consulted at least 3 other anatomy and physiology books, and they do not consider stratified cuboidal epithelium and transitional epithelium to be the same tissue type. So, for the purposes of this course, we will not consider stratified cuboidal epithelium to be the same as transitional epithelium. They are two completely different types of epithelium. Simple columnar epithelium consists of a single layer of tall column-shaped cells. This type of tissue often includes goblet cells which produce mucus. The mucous membrane of the digestive tract includes many goblet cells, and the digestive tract, at least from the stomach to the anus, consists of simple columnar epithelium. So the lining of the stomach, the small intestine, as well as the large intestine consists of simple columnar epithelium. Because stratified columnar epithelium tissue is rare in the human body, we're not going to discuss it. However, we are going to discuss pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Pseudo means false. So pseudostratified columnar epithelium is epithelium that appears to be stratified, but in reality there's only one layer of cells. What makes it appear to be stratified is the fact that these cells are so tightly packed together that the nuclei are forced up toward the apical surface, while other nuclei are forced down toward the basal surface. And so when you look at the tissue, you see the nuclei bouncing around, and it gives the illusion that you are looking at multiple layers of cells. But in reality, you're only looking at one layer of cells, thus the name pseudostratified or falsely stratified. Sometimes pseudostratified columnar epithelium are ciliated, that is, they contain cilia, such is the case with the pseudostratified columnar epithelium that lines the respiratory tract. This type of tissue plays very important roles in absorption and secretion into the lumen of, for example, the trachea and other portions of the respiratory tract. Transitional epithelium are found in parts of the body that are capable of distension or stretch. The shape of the cells of this epithelium really depends on the amount of stretching. For example, transitional epithelium lines the bladder. When the bladder is empty or nearly empty, the cells of the transitional epithelium appear to be cube-shaped. However, as the bladder fills and the lining of the bladder is stretched, the cells take on a more squamous or flat looking appearance. That is, they transition from one type of tissue to another, or at least they appear to. A gland is a mass of cells that secrete products, and the cells obtain the raw materials to assemble and secrete those products from the blood. Glands are composed of epithelial tissue, and there are two types of glands. Exocrine glands secrete substances outside of the body. Ducts convey the secretions to the outer surface of the body. Exo meaning outside. Examples of exocrine glands include salivary glands, sweat glands, and oil glands. Endocrine glands are glands that secrete substances called hormones into the blood. Endocrine glands lack ducts. Now let's review the objectives of this screencast. Describe the method for studying tissues suggested by the instructor. List the 4 primary tissues of the human body. Describe the distinguishing characteristics of epithelial tissue. Describe the form, function, and location of 6 types of epithelial tissue. Compare exocrine and endocrine glands and provide one example of each. The next screencast discusses connective, muscular, and nervous tissues.